Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.
I would like to call to order the trustees meeting for the Village of North Bennington, February 8th, 2022. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the Tuesday, January 11 meeting. Have we all had a chance to review those?
Yeah.
Any comments or clarifications? If there are none, I will accept the motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 That is unanimous. Second are the warrants. We'll start with the monthly warrant in the amount of $52,675.01. And I do know that just from speaking to Norm, much of that is likely salt because we have been through a ton.
More than a ton, I think.
Yeah,
For the truck, and that's the reserves.
for the new dump truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the Hewlett trucking, yep.
Yeah, so that's the one we purchased to work on the overlay project. No. Well, in
Any
the absence,
additions?
I'm sorry, in the absence of seeing it, we can entertain some questions on it if we have any, and then as soon as we get it up, we can see if does anybody have any questions regarding the warrant.
One question, the North Bennington Fire Department for 1,200.
So I know that they directly paid Neil Kenyon for some things that happened and down there. And then, so we're paying them back out of their maintenance and repair category. I think he wanted to pay Neil right away.
Can you share what those things were that happened?
They had, I was gonna bring it up under fire department, but I can bring it now. He called me the other day. I think they had an issue with the sewer, with the drain. Neil went in, he fixed everything, and I think he traced it back to, there's a possible issue, I believe, under one of the properties next to Powers. Either the one directly next door that's vacant. I think that's the one he was referring to. That may have to be addressed at some point, but he was able to fix and deal with the fire department issue. But there are some issues elsewhere in the line that I think Neil is going to try to investigate.
Mark, do you know if that is stormwater or sewage water?
I don't know. Yeah, Ed just called me briefly 2 days ago and mentioned an issue that Neil was taking care of. And to be honest, he may have said it. I don't remember.
Okay. Thanks. No more questions. Oh, I'd make a motion to accept the warrant for February in the amount of, get back to my screen where I can see it, 52,675.01.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. If there are no further questions, I would put it to vote, and everyone in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye, that is unanimous. Actually, sorry. And next up would be the payroll warrant. Looks like it's fairly straightforward. Obviously, the extra for Mr. Baldwin is for plowing the sidewalks. So the payroll warrant is in the amount of $9,220.75. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
All right.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Yeah, so when we vote, don't worry about unmuting, because we can do it, and I'm right here to hear you, so, yep. So if there are any, then we can switch. Mary, do you want these?
Take it easy. Oh, my son.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we can, why don't we jump ahead to new business, because it is basically citizen comment. Yep. So we'll start off, Joe, you are on the agenda, so we'll start with you. I believe in regards to the sculpture park.
Joe, you gotta unmute.
Unmute, Joe.
Mine, I got it. Okay, you got me now?
Yep, you're good.
All right, I got all the technology going here. Okay, so when I first requested to be part of this meeting, I was hoping to ask you guys for the village, not you guys, for some extra funds for this year's show, because it's the 25th anniversary of the Emboss show. But something much more pressing has come up in the last couple of days around the show. You're probably aware that Lake Perrin is our fiscal sponsor, and we have had the insurance, the liability insurance for the sculpture show under the umbrella of Perrin Recreations. But Dave Newell has retired, and the new guy who took over has told us that this is impossible. So, in other words, the liability from the lake does not extend anywhere beyond the grounds of the lake. So, what that means is that we don't know how we're going to insure the show, which is a gigantic part of the thing. I mean, ever since I took this over, this is my 10th year, this has not been a problem. Everything that happened monetarily or with the insurance has come through Lake Perrin, and we felt like everything was good and nothing has happened. So we have never needed the liability insurance. No, that wasn't liability. Alyssa, stop. There was something that happened last year with insurance, had nothing to do with liability. But anyhow, it was the first time we had a claim at all, which is where this whole thing came out of. So what I'm heading for here, and I don't know how this is going to get resolved, but I'm hoping that the village can take over the liability for the show. And that, I don't know what that would cost. I have no idea if that's even possible, but the show is on 5 different pieces of property. You have VAE, you have, obviously the village, we have Stewart's property, we have Poulin's property, and then we have the college. And I don't have to tell you from anybody who's doing any of these jobs that we're all doing for, because we like living here. I don't know if I'm the guy to go around to each individual party and try and extract liability insurance for the show out of these people. It'd be a lot easier if the village could take over that umbrella. So that's my, I don't know. Does anybody have any questions about that or anything to say about that?
Yes. So,
Okay.
so you have Perrin is under the agency that Dave Newell.
Yes,
The village is under the same agency, or did we move to?
I don't know.
For VLCT.
We move, exactly. So the first thing we need to talk to the leagues of city and towns
Mhm.
with respect to our policy and determine if we can umbrella your show on multiple properties, unlike apparently the Dave Newell replacement has decided that we cannot. And if so, that's easy.
Right. So it needs to be looked into.
Mary Laureen, do you have any idea about how that will work? I mean,
I don't know why the village couldn't, have a rider for that particular time period that the show is in existence. I know, for example, that when we had a soccer field at my home on the acreage out there, we always carried a rider for the time period that people were there. For the multiple months that they used the field. So that protected us and it protected them as well. I don't know why that couldn't happen. I think it's worth a call to the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns to see if, it would cost something. Yeah, everything costs something, but there's really no point in having it covered year round when there's really nothing there, right, Joe? So
Well, this year, there doesn't have to be. This year, there are a couple of pieces around. We left the piece
Right.
up on the hill, the big yellow piece, Mike Hansel, and then we also left a couple of pieces at VAE. But that isn't necessary. It's just that people thought it was a good idea this year.
Well, that could
Yeah,
also,
Right. It could just be, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, that could be resolved by just saying, our insurance is going to cover your artwork from X date to X date. If you choose
Yeah.
to leave your artwork there, it will not be covered under the liability.
Right.
So,
See,
that's-
the thing is, from my experience, sometimes this has reared its head in other shows that I've been in. And some towns have not wanted to do it for one reason or another. First of all, I don't know how complicated it will be. It really depends on the insurance people and how they want to deal with it. But what I'm getting at here is that a lot of times I have like a contractor's policy. If I'm moving something somewhere else, even though what I'm operating is not really that much of a business, if I'm moving something to a show in Connecticut and something happens, I'm covered under my policy. But not all the artists have that. And I'm sure that out of the 43 people that we have, probably maybe half of them have that. So, but the bottom line is let's just see what happens, and then we can talk about it later.
Yeah.
So this is like an opening. This is the opening conversation here.
Yeah, my initial feeling would be, obviously, if it's something that we can do and can afford to do, I would be more than in favor of it because it's a great event. It's going to come down to basically the same thing. How much is it going to cost? And are we able, much like Lake Perrin, are we able to use our insurance on anything other than village property? So,
Right.
But again, anything we answer now would be speculation.
Yeah, of course.
But
It'll
I
be a
think,
question to VLC.
Mark,
Yeah.
I think that even the initial inquiry will either give us a yes or a no, and it can lead us to how can we do this? Because
Right.
the leagues of cities and towns has been incredibly helpful. And
Oh, yeah.
I think, I think if they say no, they could lead us to a yes somewhere.
And then what it may end up happening is, if we can't do it anywhere else, either we have to find locations all on village property to house all the sculptures.
Absolutely. I mean, that
Which would
would be what ends up happening. I mean, then I assume that that VAE would probably do it, but then it would cost them money. Nobody knows where this money is going to come from. And then the college has never, Erin knows this, I have to sign something, a release form for the college every year. The college, up at, the townhouse, they have not been willing to cover us with any liability there. Who knows? Maybe they would be. I really don't know. But the easiest thing is if the village could do it, obviously. So anyhow, yeah, let's just see what happens, and then we can talk about that after you do a little, investigation.
So Lori, is that another thing on your shoulders to make that call, or Mary, either of you, to determine?
I can do it on the 17th.
I didn't hear that.
Do it on the 17th.
She can do it on the 17th?
Yes.
All right. We're talking about February 17th? This month?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great. Yeah.
I just didn't know whether Joe could make that initial,
No.
I would say it should,
No,
it
it's
should
our
come from the
policy.
village, 'cause
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll talk to anybody who's not on the policy.
I have called the particular, insurance person.
Yeah, so she has the contact person to get a hold of, so Mary said she's happy to do it.
Joe, that Richards is looking. The Vermont Arts Council might have a suggestion. Should this not work?
I can't hear that.
The Vermont Arts Council,
Like, I wonder if they would have suggestions. Should this not work?
I can't imagine that would lead to anything, honestly. But, like Mark said, it's either going to be covered by the village or it's going to have to be farmed out by each individual site, and we're just going to have to go from there. It's a big deal in that I can tell you already that, what's the guy's name from Richard? Seth?
No, his name is Josh. I think this is.
Josh?
Yeah, he's taken over from David.
The guy's name is Josh. He's taken over from David Newell, and he's already looking into it. But insurance companies freak out about this because it's an unknown.
He said he's never heard of anything.
Right. It's an unknown. I know it exists because there are so many towns that do this now, like all over the country. So it's just a matter of whether anybody is familiar with it and how to deal with it. And
perhaps this Josh could have a conversation with Mr. Newell.
well, I think he said he was going to do that.
Okay.
Because obviously Dave Newell had a concept, and so I mean the good news is that this is the 25th year of this thing, and there's never been an incident, which means nothing to them. But still, it should mean something. I mean, if you have an actuarial table and you have 25 years where nothing's happened, it should,
You would
the
think.
flip side to that is, if there's 1 in 5 and you've gone 5 years, you're due. So,
yeah, right.
the one time you don't have it is when you're gonna need it.
Well, we can't go forward without being covered, because I think what would happen in that case is that, I would be personally liable.
No, Lake Perrin would be liable.
Well, Lake Perrin, because Lake Perrin will continue to be our fiscal sponsor.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, it just works very easily here with that. And all right, good. So that's good enough for this issue right now, right? We'll talk about this later.
Yeah, no, we'll follow up as soon as we hear anything. We'll follow up with you, Joe. And let
All
you
right,
know
very good. Well, let me say one more thing before I luckily go off to dinner here. So we have been getting $500 from the village for the last 3 years for the sculpture prize. If we could continue that, that's been great. It's been very, very appreciated by the people who have gotten it, and it's been a very, very nice thing. So if the village wants to do that again, that would be great. But we can hold off on that until we find out what's going to happen with this insurance thing and how much that's going to cost and everything else.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Hey, thank you all for being helpful and being easy to deal with. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Thank
Enjoy your
you for
dinner.
being Joe. Take care.
All right. I'm leaving meeting.
Have a good one. All right, we also have Jenny Rozicki from the library. You're on, Jenny. Hello.
Jenny, we don't have audio.
Okay, how about now?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, great. Okay. Need a new pair of headphones after 2 years. Okay, so I'm here once again to talk about ARPA funding. So as you have probably noticed, the construction is underway at the library. But we have been alerted to, wait a second, I'm gonna back up and pull up my notes here, cause, okay. I'm here representing the McCullough Library and the trustees with this request. So we would like to increase our total request to $151,000. This is a significant increase, but this would cover the HVAC upgrades in their entirety. The HVAC upgrades that we have currently total $146,215. 146,000. I'm sorry, 215. And material cost increases alone have gone up 5,275 since an earlier quote. And the HVAC increases, there was some quote errors that happened on the part of the contractor. So we were a little caught off our guard by this. So we're seeking a funding request increase because it is necessary to meet recent unexpected increases for the current renovation project. The cost of the HVAC component of this project is much higher than anticipated, and costs have increased for other aspects as well. So we're in a bit of a scramble, to be really honest. The library is still actively pursuing additional funding and from a number of different sources here. I can elaborate if needed. But time is growing short, and grant application windows and grant committee decisions can take more time than we have. So if the ARPA funding was increased, if this request was granted, the library will avoid taking out a loan to pay for these unexpected costs that have increased. And those costs would be inevitably passed on to taxpayers, and we're trying to avoid that entirely. The HVAC upgrades are really closely aligned with ARPA priorities, just to review that. And I think that's all I have here in my notes, but I'm happy to take questions because I'm sure you have them.
Yeah, just quickly, I didn't really get much of lead time on this, but so was there a close to $70,000 misquote by the company? Is that what I'm hearing?
So there was a $35,000 misquote, but also the overall cost of other aspects of the project that are not ARPA eligible have increased since I was here in November, I believe. So we're just trying to make this work. And I was not anticipating, the folks on the building committee were not anticipating these increases.
Well, no, I can imagine it's hard to anticipate somebody else's mistake. And
There is that, and
Not to
then
mention-
sort of there have been some other things that were really unanticipated.
So is the entire increase you're asking for all related to the HVAC, which means it would all be eligible for ARPA money, or are there other aspects that may not be?
So it's HVAC, and in the original request, we had some wiring. So the HVAC component is 146,215. We're requesting 151 to cover some of the electrical rewiring, which is also aligned with ARPA funding in that it helps people access the internet.
So all the money you're asking for is all tied to ARPA funds.
Yes, yeah, it aligns with those priorities.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I can. So in my experience, which has been a lot of years, did you signed a contract with these folks who made a $31,000 error? Correct? Is that correct?
The library's building committee did, yes.
Okay, yeah. So a contract was signed and then an error was found by the contractor that he misquoted you, correct?
I believe the timeline, I'm trying to think if we signed and then the error was found, or the error was found and we still signed.
Because if they quoted you something and you signed it, they need to eat that $31,000. That's just how it is. This library is one of the most important pieces in our community. And I think it's really important that we help you as much as we can, but I don't think that a contractor should be let off that easy if he quoted you something.
Lori, Mary said it is the latter of those two situations. The error was found and they signed the contract anyway. So the contractor alerted the library that there was an error. They knew the increase before they signed the contract. So they signed the contract knowing about the increase.
Okay.
But thank you, Lori. Yeah, I think we did investigate that. Like, is this our fault, or, who bears the burden of that? I think we did. It's been all kind of a blur, to be honest, folks. But
When is an answer, are they looking for an answer tonight or no? Okay. This is a big chunk of the money. That's more than correct, Mary, or
I'm missing that dialogue. What?
They were trying to find a percentage. Yes, it's a big increase and a good chunk out of the total ARPA money, of which I know Mary has reached out to several other entities in the village several times and have gotten no requests. So it is early. Yep. I guess in a perfect world, well, you've already started the project. So short of the ARPA money, the only other avenue is you're taking out a loan because you're going through with the project. Is that correct?
that will be a decision for the building committee, but I think that was we do this or we do that. Yeah, I think that was the upshot of that.
And
of course, we are pursuing funding from the Preservation Trust of Vermont for the portico and some of the restoration aspects of this.
that was going to be my next question. So of the other money you're looking for, how much is available to you potentially?
Potentially, I think we have 20,000 pending.
And you don't have any idea when you'll hear on those? Are there timelines that you know of?
I should hear before, I believe, mid-March for the Preservation Trust.
And when is the construction done?
So the end of construction, I heard earlier this week, we had a meeting. We have a weekly meeting with the construction crews and all that stuff. And apparently there's a door shortage. Who knew? So we're going to be waiting for, right, doors. Who knew? But as doors are a really important part of restrooms, it's part of the reason why they're a separate room. It looks like June is kind of what we're looking at present because of the global supply chain and doors. That was what I learned this week.
But the increase requested relates to the HVAC, correct?
Yes.
When is that projected to be done? I would think they're not doing the doors.
No, the HVAC work will be done before the doors are put on. But I think we are lump sum paying at the end of this
Okay.
work. Mary, you want to fact check me on that?
She said you're paying periodically. So
Oh, we are?
There
Okay.
will be money due when things are completed.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. That's good. Thank you.
I didn't catch that. Does that mean it's lump sum paying
No,
the?
it's not.
No,
So there are going to be payments made along the way when things are completed. So I guess my thoughts are, if we don't have to decide tonight, and we knew when some of those other decisions were going to be made, it may be easier to make a decision on a lesser amount than the full amount rate at this time. But certainly we wouldn't want the project to come to a halt.
Yeah,
So-
it's fairly time sensitive on our end. And if I'm not sure I can be here for next month, but again, the funding that will come through Preservation Trust is not HVAC funding. It is strictly for the portico repairs, the front porch repairs. I don't know if you've seen the damage there. It's for that aspect of the work.
So the money you have, the money you're applying for elsewhere won't touch this.
It won't touch the HVAC.
So regardless of whether you get any money from anybody else, you still need
Yeah.
$55,000.
How much more are they looking for?
This is a $70,000 increase. We
On
had
top of-
80. We're asking for 70 for a total of 151,000. To put it in perspective as a percentage of this project, the project totals, the original scope was 195,260, but with the inclusion of the HVAC work, the combined total was 300 as at present. It's 341,475. And the rest of this has been funded through grant funding, a generous bequest, donations, and yeah, without affecting the library's operational budget.
Which is not necessarily, I mean, your budget's pretty tight. Right?
I think why everyone is hesitating is that we are trying to make sure that we don't have other uses for the ARPA funds. So we're kind of listening to the change, and it's a big chunk, almost double what we already allocated. And to our current knowledge, we don't have destination for the other ARPA funds. And we really foresee a big use for the ARPA funds in the future, other than maybe smaller projects. But I think we all got sticker shock. I can only tell you and I hesitate to say too much. I hesitate to say too much because, in full disclosure, I am a volunteer with the library. So I don't want to say anything that's going to seem unduly swaying the conversation. But also as the ARPA administrator, I can tell you that if this request were granted or a significant portion of it, there would still be $350,000 left. That would leave $100,000, just roughly speaking, for the 3 other entities that I've talked with who do have some, potential programs. There's just in eyeballing it, I don't think they were going to be requesting anything near that amount. And it would also leave a little left over for the village to do projects such as the ball field. So it wouldn't drain the coffers, but that's all I feel comfortable saying. I don't want to sway anyone's decision. We want to get, what public involvement more in this. I'm just wondering if we want to bring the public into some of the decision making, or at least say that we're going to talk about this. I know that there are time sensitive. Yeah, and I also think that because when the use of funds for the library went out, there were 45 or 50 signed petitions for that, and you would never get 45 or 50 people out of that here. So I understand that, and I don't want to sway it one way or the
But the ARPA funds have come to all of these villages and towns and ours. Who is in charge of allocating it? The select board?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
trustees or?
And to add even more, which is why I kind of agree with not making a decision tonight, but taking it under advisement. I've been up to my eyeballs, but I would like to provide you more information on the final ruling that has come from the Treasury Department, which actually gives municipalities a little bit more leeway than before. Which I would like to write that up for you, but I just need a little time to do so.
Is that something we would want to have a special meeting about later to discuss, or if we want to whatever next week?
I mean, I'm willing to think separately about this process.
We'll have to use a 30-day notice.
Right, that's up to you.
So, Jenny, if we kind of table this until the March meeting, I would assume that, Mary, do you think that would?
I could provide you a little bit more structure with what the final rule, the Treasury's final.
So I think, and again, I think I was kind of under the same boat. I'm very much in favor of helping the library and I'm sure everyone here is, but it is kind of a, so, that's a lot.
It's one of the few public buildings you have in town, which is definitely aligned with that.
Yep. And yeah, I think that if we just had the month to kind of mull it over, get a little more feedback and maybe a little more information on potential other projects, that would kind of light a fire under us too, to figure out, are there things in the village that need to be addressed? I mean, there are some things, but not, I mean, just in looking at Welling Field and the skate park, I know that there are things that need to be addressed there, but we're talking pennies in comparison to what would even put a dent in the money. So I don't think anything that I can think of would be a reason to not support this. But I do think it would be in our best interest to kind of give it some time to really think it over, and to make sure that we're not jumping into something that the rest of the community doesn't support, which I don't think we would be, but I think it, in my mind, that seems like the best approach. And I'd be happy to hear anybody else's opinion on that as well.
Well, I would like to just mention that I think that I'm reticent to jump right into this because I think we've already increased the library's request once. We started with maybe bathrooms originally with the ARPA stuff and then the HVAC. And I am also fully supportive of the library, but I'm worried that we're gonna have kickback from this. If we dump a couple $100,000 into the library, which if there was no potential repercussion, I would dump $1 million into it if we had it. But I think what I need to see in the next couple weeks in the library, because of this situation, is a real wholehearted attempt at finding somebody within the village or within the broader community who recognizes this situation and says, here, we'll fix this. Because with the understanding that there's a lot of other things, and even if other organizations aren't coming to us for this money, we most certainly can use it ourselves for any number of things at the base village level. And I think we started out really being very generous, and this speaks nothing to the ultimate value of the library fully HVAC'd and bathroomed and portico code, and I just worry there's going to be a lot of people, and maybe they should have been coming to the door right earlier. They are all aware of it. But I'm a little anxious about this, as I imagine Jenny is, and the facilities committee on the library board. But I don't like being
potential there. Then, so Matthew, it maybe sounds like we might be more comfortable maybe having an announced meeting on this, a public meeting on it, to gauge public support. And then there would be no blowback, because if we offer the community a chance to come and speak to it and they don't show up, that's on them, not on us. And again, if we have to warn that, we could get it aligned fairly closely to, or even at the next meeting, because that would be outside of 30 days. I believe it's 30 days to warn a meeting of that. So if we warned it, by the end of this week, that would align with the March meeting. We wouldn't have to do a separate meeting. We could actually do it at the March meeting and start right off with a public meeting regarding this topic. Tara has.
Mary, I'd like some clarification. You said if we come up with the other, excuse me, 70,000 or roughly, that leaves us with what?
We would be in for about 151 total.
What's left? What's left after that?
Sorry, right around 350.
Almost 360. So Jenny, my question to you is, can you guys hold out for a month and we do proceed with a little more information and then make your determination and, have an answer 30 days from now? Is that doable?
Mary would be the expert on that one, and I believe so. Good with that?
Mary did say yes, that was doable.
Okay. So let's see. I guess this is my plug. If anyone's listening in and they'd like to donate to this project, now's your chance. Get a hold of me. If in the interim, folks on the trustees would like to take a look at what's going on, get in touch with me. I'd be happy to give you a tour, you know, couple at a time to come and see. It's exciting stuff, so you can kind of see what's happening there. I've been taking photos all along. So just so I can get our supporters rallied, you'd like to have this as a special topic at town meeting in March?
No, it wouldn't be at the annual meeting. That
Okay,
already said. It would be, we have a scheduled meeting prior to that.
Okay.
Our monthly, we still have a monthly meeting in March,
okay,
March 8th.
okay.
It would be March 8th, Mary says. So we'll try to, and it would be probably best for all of us if we just kind of, we're going to have a meeting that close to it. We piggyback on that meeting and do it all at once. That way we're not,
It's not 30 days.
what's that?
No, it's 28 days.
It's not 30 days.
Oh, February is not 30 days. I should know that. Well, then we'll have to do it. And when is what's the date of the annual?
26,
15. March 15th.
So we would have to.
Well,
So
we
if
could
we
do
could
it
start
then.
it by, if we. I'm sorry, Matthew, what was that?
could we not do it at the annual meeting? Can you add a special meeting to the annual meeting?
I think what we could do is possibly schedule it for just before it. If we're thinking we'd rather just do it on the same day, just so we're not meeting an extra time, we could certainly do it at 6:30. That would give us, because
A different
7:30.
meeting, right? Yeah.
Yep, so if we did that for 6:30, that would give us an hour prior to the annual meeting to do this. Does that sound
That's
doable?
sooner, I mean, that's sooner than March. I mean, I guess that makes sense.
It is March. It is March.
That would be March.
I'm sorry. It's later than the meeting that, right.
Yes.
I get my annual meetings mixed up because I got the school stuff too, right? That's 26th.
Oh.
Jenny, would you be willing to share kind of a financial breakdown to us in the interim, so we have kind of a physical understanding of what and where everything's going? I know you said it, but can we also see it?
Yeah, let's see. So, let's see. I have it.
Not now.
I just sent it to Mary.
You did.
Mary, can you forward that to everybody? I'm sure you have everyone on yeah, okay. So you can see the totals that we were working with.
Great. Yep. No, Mary says she can do that, and she'll
Okay.
do that with her, as long as we get it before that meeting. But so, does that sound doable for everybody?
And don't be discouraged, Jenny. I think we're just trying to make sure that we're representing the village completely before we make decisions.
Oh, I know. I had all sorts of reservations. Like, am I really going to Zoom and ask for like $70,000? Like, what am I doing with my life? So,
What
that's,
choice did you have?
pardon?
What choice did you have? We don't question you. I
So,
would encourage you to come forward all the time. The worst thing you can do is get a no.
yeah, no worries. We're, and the option for the library, if we don't find funding for this, is a loan that would be passed on to taxpayers, and we're trying to like avoid that.
Mhm.
So this is a way of avoiding those costs in the future. But again, if you'd like to donate and support the library this way, get a hold of me, stop by, knock on the door, but not tomorrow because we're a planned power outage because the old system is being switched over to the new for the wiring. We're not going to be there because the power will be out. So, but that's the deal. Rarely discouraged, no worries.
Well, Jenny, thank you very much, and we'll see where this leads. I mean,
Yeah.
Nothing else, I'm sure we could find some support.
Yeah.
And between now and then, we'll try to wrap our heads around this, and whatever you could do on your end to see what else might be available out there would be great as well.
Oh, no worries.
Sure you have-
on it.
Yes. Great. Well, thank you very much.
Jenny.
for coming
Thank you
forward.
for your support and your consideration. Please reach out if there's any info you need or want to take a look.
Thanks for your bravery.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I certainly feel for them. It's one thing to be hit with a couple $5 here or there overage, or you see your gas prices go up a couple of cents, but $75,000 is a lot of money. All right, moving on. Treasurer's reports. Sure, I will do that. I just, okay.
Or
There you go. Just use mine. Nobody
we'll
needs
just use, yeah. Use the gold. All right, well, hello. I would like to introduce everyone to, it says Mark Boudreau, but we are not Mark on this thing. Doug Buggy has been an unofficial but official assistant. This last month, we've met 3 times. Doug actually helped prepare the statements that were sent to you this time. Here, we can move this one so that it doesn't look like we have 2 of it. We can move Mark on that one. Yeah. There. Well, we at least have 3 letters the same in our names. So there. Anyway, I just wanted you to say hello to Doug, and he will be assisting me for the foreseeable future. As far as the reports, I don't really have a lot to tell you about this time. We spent enough time in our training that the extra things just didn't get there. But if you do look at the reserve funds, you'll see that the backhoe, if I took the $16,000 that we just spent out of the backhoe reserve fund, that pretty much drains it, but we have not yet funded it for the year. So that's fine. It just may mean that next year, when we have the next payment, we just might not have everything in the reserves to cover that, but we can.
And is it my understanding too that the dump truck that we bought for that project is going to be eventually flipped?
Yes.
And sold, so
Yes.
we could actually take, if we use that reserve money, when we sell the dump truck, we can reimburse the reserve.
You know what, Mark, you bring a great point in. We already have other funds that we have in our sale of assets that we wouldn't have to completely take that funds out of the reserve. But if we do, we will put it back by the end of the year when we do our year end, and especially before we look at what our pluses and minuses are when we do that. But yes, we did that, and there's been, I want to say, $30,000 or so that we've already had from the sale of assets, and that all was to go towards the new things. So yes, good point. Thank you. The other thing is, usually we fund the reserves towards the end of the year, just because we wait to see if there was any unusual project or something and we run out of the tax monies that we've already accrued. That doesn't look like it's going to be the point, the situation this year. So while I have Doug's assistance and to do some further training,
I think in the month of March, we'll work together to fund some of those reserves. Any questions for us?
I'll say that's it. I have none. Any questions? I can trade computers again.
Welcome, Doug.
Yes.
For taking on responsibility.
Okay, that might be a record, Mary. That was the shortest report ever.
Mark, just before you go on, and I don't want to forget, Mary very kindly brought up a bunch of annual reports to the depot. So they're there. And if you could actually take them out of the box and spread them on the table before you leave, that'd be great, because there's several meetings coming up. And I've sent the PDF out to many people, but lots of people like to have a book in front of them. So there's probably 10 or 15, Mary was, that I sent up with Mary.
Right.
So please grab one if you'd like, or grab 4 or 5.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
All right, moving on, the highway report. Norm sent me an email, so we'll just kind of highlight it. Obviously, first of all, when you get the weather we've had, a lot of people might think, oh, it was maybe a few inches. That type of weather is probably the hardest to deal with, uses much more of our salt supply and our man hours than a 2-foot snowstorm. They were out for a ridiculous amount of hours. And I think Norm said he emptied our salt probably twice in a short period of time. And we've got another potential rainy mess coming in this weekend. So in a year where you don't think that they may be on the hook as much plowing, they've had a terrible time of it this year. And we certainly appreciate their efforts. And once again, even though you may have driven around and said, why aren't the roads perfect like they always are? It is impossible to get those roads perfect with that kind of weather. And I think they did a fantastic job with the conditions they were given. So obviously kudos to them. And that was most of his report. Long hours, lots of salt. He did mention that they will be starting cleanup, especially a lot of the tree debris that came down in this last storm. As soon as they can kind of catch their breath and make sure they're not going to be doing any extra plow time, they'll start the cleanup process there. You did want me to mention that the money we spent on the dump truck for the Overley Road project, the culvert project. And again, that will be, it's a short term, I think is that 18 months. So in 18 months, we will be looking to, it's a piece of equipment that is great for now, but nothing we need to hold on to. So that would likely be sent on to somebody else, and we'll more than likely make a good profit on it. Viking is going to replace the hydraulic system on the big truck. They've been trying to work that all out. They're waiting to get that scheduled. It will be gone for about a week. It's got to go to Burlington. It takes 3 days once it's there, and then it's got to come back. I think Norm's just waiting to make sure that we have Bennington's backup truck available to us before he sends that truck out, because we obviously don't want to be without that piece of equipment if we need it. So possibly within the month, we might see that, depending on kind of the forecast and how they feel they can get that scheduled and the availability of the spare truck. That was basically it for his report. I did have one thing to add. I did get a call last week from a resident on Hall Street, just asking about when that might be paved next. I do know that that's been on our radar as one of the needy streets. I did speak to Norm today, and he said that's probably about third on the list. I think Prospect was one. I can't remember where he said the second was, but then Hall Street is probably third. And like every other paving project, it'll be what we have for money, how much it's costing at the time, and what we can bite off in that moment. Well, yeah. No, it was not. No, it was not. You had somebody else call for you. Good move. So anyway, if that resident is listening, I will follow up with you, but There is no planned time for that to happen, but do know that it is on the at least short priority list to get that done when a paving project is taken. Barry's got a little
Yeah,
something.
I can just make sure that for the next meeting, we just, that I will provide you with the update, because there are significant paving funds, road funds still available for the year. So we'll have that for you in March or before.
Okay, so possibly an update on that, on timing for next meeting. That's it for highways. DRB has,
A meeting scheduled on February 15th at 7 o'clock. That is the next Tuesday. Anyone concerned with the permit application of the issue on Honeysuckle is welcome to attend via Zoom or in person.
the in-person will be here.
Maybe it's not in person.
Where does DRB meetings usually take place? On the other side? Okay, so Jim must have so it won't be here, it'll be on the other side, but it will be at the depot.
As far as I know, we were gonna have.
Actually, the water department is meeting on the other side and the DRB is meeting in the big room.
Okay, so the DRB meeting will be here in person and available on Zoom. Thank you, Lori. Okay. Planning Commission. I don't have anything. Nothing.
I do.
Oh, sorry.
So, the syndicate has contacted me about some questions about zoning on Main Street. You know, the syndicate bought the 14, was it 14, Mary?
Not 14 Main Street, that's my house.
What is it? What's,
I believe it's 40 and either 47 or 48.
there you go. They bought that, and apparently they also bought the house adjacent to the sculpture park to the so they have two properties there separated by a property, and they're looking into some clarifications regarding the zoning of that area. And I spoke with David Kelso excuse me, last week, I guess, and I told him to get in touch with Jim Sullivan, whether we can get some get together and find, you know, it's about time to relook at the zoning bylaws again. They're just kicking around some ideas what they might be able to do with those properties in the basically within the realm of affordable housing and some of these issues. So I said that maybe in March or even April sometime, we will reconvene our planning commission once I know who's on it entirely, because it's unclear to me at this point. We haven't met in probably 3 years or more. And start looking at that and see if we can get one of those grants from the BCRC to do a whole, you know, look again at our zoning. So that's what I have. That's coming down the pike.
Have you had a chat with Billy Rogers, the zoning administrator? He might be helpful with that as well.
Billy would be included in that, but I have not spoken to him about this because, well, one, I think his hands are full, maybe with what's coming up. And, you know, again, this is more this is more, looking at the way we can change the bylaw, change the zoning.
As opposed to what they actually say. I got you.
Right. Whereas, no, they actually, I did put Kelso in touch with, told him to talk to Billy about what currently under the current interpretation of the zoning on that part of Main Street would allow or not. And I don't know what they came up with, but so
I
anyway,
would think, my gut would say if it's affordable housing, I mean, we have a homeless shelter around the corner.
yeah,
I don't
so
know if that kind of falls under the same type of a zoning type application, but
so we changed the zoning on Main Street to a what is it? I can't remember the designation that we called it, but it was a way of offering the opportunity of kind of a professional where somebody could buy a property there and maybe have, doctor's offices, law offices, stuff like that. It's not VR, it's VC, Village Commercial. And yet, when we had our discussion, we were looking at that, and it wouldn't currently allow exactly what they may be thinking about, which is really kind of a progressive, interesting housing possibility down the property line on the house closest to the post office that they bought, and then connecting back behind there somehow, maybe to the property on the south side, which is next to Redeemed Repair.
Mhm.
They're
so
looking at it,
a significant add-on to those properties.
right.
Okay.
Right. So they're looking at a huge investment in a full reconstruction in any sort of way with the Main Street property that we struggled with for the last many years.
Mhm.
I think they're gung ho. I mean, they will do it, but they've got to find the right formula. Whether they go the affordable housing way through the way that, frankly, the way the Perrin Lake development was, or the brick housing up by Whitman's. So they're exploring all of that, and they're just wanting us to hear what they have to say and then consider whether we agree that we could make it happen.
Okay.
So that's all.
And you said possibly having something in March.
March or April, I think finally, Jim was looking at April for a planning commission meeting about it.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. Fire department, the only thing I had, we've already spoken of, the plumbing issue they had. I don't think there's anything else at the fire department. Water department, I did get their notes. I think they're in the process now of kind of putting together a list of their potential projects now that weather will start to turn sometime within the next couple of months. But no new updates on any of the other issues. I think they had one issue with Maplebrook. That had to do with the hydrant flushing that was going on, and I think there's an insurance claim that's pending on that, but nothing really to report on other than it's happening. For the water department, new business, we took care of Joe Chiccirillo already. Any other new business?
Or old? What do we have on that agenda?
Old
New or
business.
old?
We're on new right now. We just had Joe Chiccirillo, which we already did under public comment. So nothing else under new, but is there anything else that's not on the agenda? New.
Nope.
Okay, so under old business, the dog receptacle, Norm has contacted the company. He's waiting to hear back. So I don't know if they are back ordered or,
Probably.
but he has reached out, and that is, I mean, it can't go in the ground now anyway. So he did, I spoke to him a couple weeks ago. He had not ordered it at that point, but did attempt to, and it is at least in the works. We also have bike racks
Yep.
on there.
So I have a bike rack. We got to decide where to put it. I've not spoken to Rob. I think I said last month that I would find out if they wanted to fund a second one and have a say in where they go. So I'm still haven't done that. Does the board have any more input on that? I know that Tara had some ideas before, if there was still any ideas there, but otherwise, when spring comes around, I think we need to get probably 2 bike racks installed somewhere in the village.
Yeah, I mean, I know we spoke last time about potential. I mean, the library is kind of a no-brainer to me. I mean, if they're willing.
Because they have the whole repair, the bike repair thing that.
Right, so they're gonna have a repair station, but that does not include a bike rack. So if they're gonna have a station, it would make sense to maybe have a bike rack there. Not to mention its central location. Oh, Jenny, hello.
Hi, Jenny.
Hey, we already have a bike rack, just
Is it-
FYI. We do. It's kind of on the side of the building.
Yeah, I do remember it. Is it adequate? Like, is it?
It holds 4 or 5 bikes, more if you're going to be creative about it.
Okay,
So, yeah. So we have one. We're good.
awesome,
All right.
thanks. So the other, obviously, here would be a good spot. We're right across the street from the post office, and we're also very close to the park. And those would be the 2 that really jump to mind for me would be Lions Park and the train station. I know we did kind of mention McWaters Park. I know, but I don't know that that's.
Even if it's a bike destination, it might not be a bike lockable destination necessarily. So
Yeah, because to me, if you're riding your bike there, you're not really going anywhere else. You're staying there, so your bike could lean up against a tree. Here, you might be walking around town, so you'd want to lock it up so you can walk down to the stores or walk around a little bit. So
It's possible the meeting that discussed having bike racks with the fund posted, they may have expressed places that they thought would be appropriate.
the other place I did think about was near Mile Around Woods, because I have seen people actually bike there, and then they kind of push it up to the hill on the set, not where the Mile Around is, the second entrance to the fields, and they'll lock them together. So, I mean, it would make sense to have one there if they're receptive to having one. So near Mile Around or the second entrance.
I think that would probably be desirable for the fund, because they're gonna pay for the installation of this and
Mhm.
maybe the cost of the second rack. So I think something maybe kind of down at the base of the main entrance, Mile Around, makes sense. And then one in the center of town at the village office, or
Well, I guess,
somewhere.
you know, if we're gonna have it at the village, I think maybe the better location would be the park. Because I think if you're gonna, obviously, they would be riding their bikes more to a location there, and that's just as close to everything as the depot is. And I don't really know exactly where we put it at the depot.
I don't either. It could also be in between, either in the little parcel we have
Oh, by the fire pit?
where the fire pit is, or by the old train barn, but no, I agree. We can figure that out.
Yep. So next step would just be finding out if we're gonna have one or two, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and then we can, once the weather permits installation, we'll finalize the spot. And we'll check with the fund to see if they're interested in having a second one down by the Mile Around Woods.
Yeah, I'll try
And-
to do that. Yep.
Okay, and the last thing we had under old business was the traffic devices. Oh, you were gonna bring that up, Ann?
Not that I think so. Should I really know that? You're talking about the Canada.
Well, that was, yes, I think we hadn't kind of finalized an exact number and an exact location. I think we all agreed that, you know, maybe right by the village garage would be a potential spot for one, because Mechanic Street is a high volume, high speed road. Yeah,
Coming into town, right? Coming,
yeah, that was the other one I was gonna bring up, I think, and I would almost guarantee that North Bennington Variety would be receptive to possibly having it on or near their property, because he's mentioned to me several times. I know he's personally called Bennington PD about it, the sheriff's department about it, so I know he's constantly trying to find ways to slow traffic there down. So, and that again it's coming from a 50 into a 25, not all at once, but that is a common place for high speed traffic, and again, a high volume traffic. So I guess if I were to think of the two probably most likely places, it would be those two. Or if we thought maybe even further, I don't know, Lori, you might be able to speak to this a little better. By the time they get to your house, they've already had to stop at the three-way stop. So I would think that, I know people can get going pretty quick. So is it usually down the hill, or?
Yeah, well, you know, they do, after they've stopped and they're coming towards George Street from that three-way stop, they just fly all the way down. Don't they, Aaron? It's terrible. It's really, yeah, it's so fast, so scary. If you're out walking your dog or whatever.
Yep.
I think the routing on here.
Yeah, I just think that, and it doesn't really, not that it's not a great place, but it's not obviously an aesthetic piece of property anyway. So adding a sign there wouldn't affect. Right, it would make it a lot easier because, again, yep, Mary just mentioned it is village property, so it'd certainly be easy for us to make the decision to put it there. I think we're all thinking that it would be pole mounted, maybe 2 pole mounted. We did get, and I apologize, I don't have the quotes we had on that, but if we think we're in agreement that we can maybe put it on the agenda for next meeting to make a definite vote and a purchase.
yes.
I don't think it'd be appropriate to do it without the exact dollar amounts in front of us. So Lori, can we get that on the agenda for next, is to vote on to approve 2 speed control devices for the village? Please, and thank you. Anything else under old business? I guess just one, are we on track? Do we have?
Special meeting is on Thursday next week, 7 o'clock here and on Zoom, I believe. I'm hosting it next week.
Oh, I will be at that meeting, yes. This is for the ordinances.
Yeah, this one. So yeah, Thursday,
17th, correct?
17th,
Yes,
7 o'clock, and on Zoom.
And that is also the same day that we're gonna have the
hazard mitigation.
plan meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got both Warren for that meeting.
And we see, does everything seem to be, paperwork is in order, and do you need help with anything? Okay. I just want to make sure that if I can be of help, I will be.
I can disseminate the ordinances prior to the meeting so that everyone can have an email copy and go from there.
Awesome. Okay, do we have, I want to say I heard some chatter about executive for the reasons of payroll. Thank you. So I will entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
And do we have a second? And we have a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. So we will move into executive session.
Recording in progress.
Okay, Cat TV, can we jump right in, or do you need another countdown? We're good. Okay. We have now come out of executive session, and I would entertain a motion to acknowledge that Doug Bugey has been named Assistant Treasurer for the village, and the board would like to pay him in the amount of $17 per hour as long as he holds that position. Do I have that motion?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Patterson and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That motion passes unanimously. And with that, I would now entertain a motion to close the meeting. We have a motion and a second. And all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. We will now end our meeting.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.